I'm your host, Reena Friedman Watts, and this is the Better Call Daddy Show.
Hey, this is Big Daddy, Wayne Friedman.
That's my grandpa. Grandpa, you ready for more daddy drama?
My dad is my number one hero and number one fan.
And I'm a pretty cool dude.
All right, season 4, baby, here we go.
More stories you're not going to believe.
And maybe you will after you listen.
5 stars.
5.5 stars, 2 thumbs up.
You are a pretty cool dude.
I love you, Mommy.
Don't stand on the table and damn the public. You'll get some words of wisdom to live by.
Here we go again. Better call Daddy.
You know what your problem is? You like me.
Yeah, I do. Each week, I interview a guest, share the stories with my dad, and then he weighs in at the end of every episode with his wisdom and wit.
Hey, Grandpa.
Everyone from influential players to inspirational fathers, and of course, controversial people.
Grandpa, my mommy's calling.
Creating that legacy one call at a time. And welcome to the Better Call Daddy Show.
Stay tuned.
Where's the music?
Better call Daddy 'cause he knows you best. Better call Daddy 'cause he's bringing the test. He sees possibilities. Ooh, better call Daddy, he'll be by your side. Better call Daddy, you're the apple of his eye. He sees possibilities. Oh, you
Today's guest is a purpose-driven entrepreneur. He's a girl dad, and we met locally here in Houston. We're talking about breaking cycles, raising daughters with intention, and navigating the challenges of networking. Kelby Green, welcome to the Better Call Daddy Show.
Hey, everybody, I'm Kelby. I am normally behind the camera, but today I'm sitting in front of the camera talking about entrepreneurship, parenting, family, getting probably too personal, and had a great time with Reena. So look forward to you checking it out.
Kelby, thank you so much for bringing me to your studio in Houston.
Thank you for visiting. I've been talking about it for weeks now. And so thank you for finally coming in and giving me some positive feedback on it. So I'm excited to have you here.
Talk to me about building this space.
It was a labor of love. It's just, I mean, literally, there's like the back wall was built by hand and a lot of the other things. It's just kind of testing theory. So it was, a lot of it was, I saw a need in the market, right? And I realized, hey, if I can create something that, one, scratches my own itch, because I have clients that need to create video content. So like, what can I create that we can, one, do that, but then two, offer it to the community at large. And so I worked out of the Cannon, which is a co-working space in West Houston. Well, they have a West Houston location, and a lot of business owners had the same issue. And so created this as a way to test my theory that, hey, if we provide a space where people can just come in, have conversations like this, and be able to walk away within a day or so with the file and be able to post it, a lot of people would like that, and it would help them promote their brand. So that's what this space is. That's the idea behind it. So, and I'm excited about it. It's still in its infancy stage, but there's a lot of concepts and a lot of things that I was trying to validate to make sure that it's a good market fit. And so far it has.
Okay, let's talk about what validation looks like. How have you tested whether this is a good idea?
The fact, like bringing in paying clients, like it's a super low barrier to validation. It's like, hey, there's somebody, and literally it's like people at home can't really see what I'm pointing at, but there's a glass window behind at the end of the office, and people will literally walk by and look into the room and like, hey, what are you doing in there? And then we talk about it, and they're like, hey, I've been looking to do that, or I have a podcast, or I know someone, and I want to book the space, and they'll book the space. And it's like that on its own has kind of validated the first point of like, hey, is this a legitimate business idea? And then two, it's opened it up for, I've had some other conversations with people that aren't quite ready to start their podcast. They're like, hey, we have an idea or have a concept. And it's like, well, don't record yet, because you'll record 2 and that's it, because you won't get past that because you don't have a strategy behind it. And so it's opened up like, there are other things that we can add to it. And it's, other conversations where, okay, we recorded the post, we recorded the video. Now, what can we do for social media? How can we share this? Okay, well, here's something else that we can do. And in-person video, like, hey, I want to do the video podcast, but I want to host it I'm interviewing a former boxer. This is a real story. I want to interview a former boxer that has a gym in downtown. do you think you can bring the equipment and we can record it there and you can, set everything up there? And it's like, sure, we'll get a couple of those questions. Maybe this is a more, remote / in-person space. So a lot of different things are being validated here. This is the year of business idea validation, I think.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like that. Have you been asked to do any parts of the production or marketing that you're like, you need to hire somebody else for that?
Not yet, but part of that I think is just saying yes to a lot of things. Now there is a level of frustration or a level of just like that comes from, that's the only way I can describe it. That comes from like saying yes. But I think when I look back after this 12 months, there will be a point where I'm like, okay, I truly know what I want to offer with this space, what I want to offer with this service offering, and what I absolutely don't. And the only way I'm going to do that is by saying yes to a lot of things and, within reason. I mean, there's certain things that, obviously don't fall within the parameters of the space, but I think just being open enough to saying, hey, yeah, let's try that. That seems like within the realm. So that's where I am. Right.
Talk about investing in yourself, because before you get clients, you had to buy all of this stuff.
It is, which it was one, I'm pretty frugal. Like that's just who I am. Two, it made sense. So this business. So going back a little bit, I run a content marketing agency. And so I produce content for clients. I do video, I do written content. So some of this stuff was part of just what I needed for the other side of the business. And so it kind of made sense from an investment standpoint to expand what I already have, if you can see some return on that within a certain amount of time. And so that kind of goes back to the validation piece where if I'm just kind of sitting in this room by myself and nobody sees value in it, then it's like, well, maybe this was not the right path. But starting to see and actually starting to get marketing clients from this space, it's like, okay, this was a good investment. And have I made my money back for everything? No, but I mean, it's 3 months into it. So it's like, it's a long-term thing. This equipment is going to get a lot of use. It is going to probably be replaced multiple times over. So there's not an immediate return on investment. And I think if I was to quantify the new relationships I've built and those types of things, if there was a monetary value associated with it, I think that I have gotten a great return on it.
Okay, speaking of return, you know about return because you worked in the finance industry.
I do have that background. And you can hear it coming out in the way I describe things, right? Yeah, that was my background. So I started in finance and banking when I was a senior in high school. And so kind of interesting story with that, and then I'll go to the rest of it. I worked at Walmart in Dallas during the summer, and it was like 107 degrees outside. I was pushing baskets inside. And I remember my mother had come up there, I was talking to her in the parking lot, and I was like, there's no way that I can continue doing this. It's way too hot. Literally, the hair on my arm turned blonde because it was bleached from the sun. And so it was like, I was like, there has to be something better. So she's like, well, just figure out like where you'd want to work this inside or something that's a better situation. And so that night or sometime after that, I put together a resume and I walked into the local Wells Fargo in my area. Like, this is, and it's not so far back to where like you could do that. It just happened. I was naive enough to think you put something together, you walk into a bank and you talk to somebody and they give you a job. And literally that's what happened. They, I'm sure they had to do their HR stuff on the back end, but I was like, hey, I have nothing to lose. And so that introduced me to banking, and I enjoyed it, went through college, worked in banking, went to the financial advising side of it. And that is where hit a little bit of a crossroads where I realized, and it's kind of funny to your story. I won't say your story, but I hit a point to where I was like, man, I don't know that I believe in the things that we're supposed to be selling, and that, sure, it benefits someone or it benefits an entity, but like, I don't feel good about what I'm doing. And so I realized like I do have an interest in finance, but the way that this is being done, it doesn't feel good to me. And so coincidentally, I don't know at what point in time it was, I was like, hey, I'm gonna start a personal finance blog, because I had friends and family members that would come and just ask financial questions because I'd been in the industry for so long, and started a personal finance blog. And I got reached out to from some financial advisors that were like, hey, we need some content. We like the way you write. It resonates with us. Can you write for my personal finance blog? And I was like, yeah, somebody's going to pay me to do something I already want to do. And so one advisor led into 3, 5, 7. And at a certain point, it was like, hey, this is pretty much what my corporate salary is in the job that I don't really love. So let's see how sustainable this is. So I gave a 3-month notice at my corporate job, and it didn't stop. It just kind of kept going from there. And so I was able to start the business and go from there. So I was able to kind of merge the financial part of what I liked doing with the creative and like writing and developing content. And that's where the business started.
That's super interesting. I want to know, how has blogging and personal brand changed from when you started until now?
It's so different. Like, it's night and day. And it's funny because I see some people that started in the industry the same time I did, and they are still operating the same way. And it's like, I get it because you get so siloed into what you're doing. But blogging in 2015, 2016 is completely different than it is today. I mean, branding, like back in those days, you could have a business brand that could produce content, people could consume it, and they could decide to do business with that company. Now it's like, one, attention spans are negative, whatever. And it's like getting people to actually read a full blog post and not skim, the important stuff is hard enough. But content has changed. Like, I mean, look what we're doing. This is going to be video. This will be audio as well. This is like a completely different format that people are consuming. And even with this, like, you have to break this down into small chunks to get people enticed by the conversation to even look at the long form version. So it has changed. I mean, personal brands, even within large corporate brands, you almost have to have an individual that's kind of driving the marketing and kind of serving as a brand ambassador just to get people to be interested in and kind of humanize the brand. So things have changed so much, which I kind of love. I'm big on storytelling, and a lot of times it was very difficult to tell a story of a corporate brand because they were used to kind of operating in such a, uptight and corporate environment that they were reluctant to even like humanize it. And now it's like, if you don't, you're not going to be around for that much longer. So now creating content for brands is a lot more fun and engaging and, a lot more human.
Have you branched out outside of financial advisors?
I have. So that was a pivot 3 or so years ago. Like, the pandemic was not the driving force, but I think around that time it was like, when you operate in a certain industry for so long, I think you start to just think the way of the industry and you don't allow other creative ideas and different things to come in. And so I noticed that about myself and the content and the things that we were creating. We're like, this is personal finance content. And it starts to feel like, I don't really like boring and just, and I apologize to any clients that I think we still created great content. Let me put the disclaimer out there. But I wanted to work in other industries just so I could get a different creative bend on what we were creating. So it's like, for example, one client that we picked up around that time was a commercial cleaning company. And commercial cleaning is not sexy. It's not one of those that like people are dying to consume content from, but we had to figure out a way to humanize it and create content. And so it was cool because we're having to figure out what makes someone decide to do business. And these contracts are pretty big contracts for commercial cleaning companies when they're dealing with school districts and all types of different things. So it's pretty cool to like mix that up. So long story long, yes, I have transitioned into multiple industries. That what I found is I wanted to work with service-based businesses that had a common thread. And so that's kind of what I moved into, just service-based businesses that the owner or leadership were at least involved enough to where they saw the value in creating content, and they would provide me with the resources to have a brand ambassador and to create content on their behalf.
What are some of the mistakes you've made?
How long do you have? I mean, a ton. Not doing enough research into the buyer persona or the person we're talking to. So our message completely misses who we're trying to target. Even with this space that we're in, I guess maybe not getting the community involved early enough, like rolling kind of a slow launch or a quiet, soft launch, maybe giving a little bit more runway there so I could generate a lot more interest up front and kind of have a waiting list of people that were anticipating the build out of it.
Ooh, that is such a good lesson, because when you look in demand, more people want
100%.
to be involved.
Yep.
You have to create a hype. You know this as a marketer.
Yep. And it was a matter of and there was some, there were some little things that I would do along the way, but it could have been done a lot better. It could have, really created that demand around the space, because it's like, this is a space where people like need to create or need to put their companies out in front. So it missed opportunity there. Not completely missed, but just there could have been a lot better execution on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope that
if you don't make these mistakes though, then
yeah. I mean, and there's plenty of other. I mean, there's some mistakes too. I think mistakes are tricky because it's easy for us to look at it from this side and say, "Oh, that was a mistake. I would have done that differently." But I think a lot of times things that we may view as mistakes position us right where we're supposed to be. So there's things in my life where, at the time, and even looking back on it, like, oh man, I would have changed my major to this, or I would have done that differently. But if I would have done that, I wouldn't be in the place where I am now. And I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at this time. So, I mean, it's tricky to answer a mistake because I think there's value in mistakes. It's a lot that we can come out on the other side with.
100%. Oh, yeah. Talk to me about collaborating with other creatives.
Yeah. So what we're doing now is I don't even know if I shared this with you all, but like I'm an introvert, probably not a surprise there. 2, networking just has not historically been my thing. And I think, again, with one of your recent episodes, by the time this airs, it's just, I felt like networking was very focused on me and what I can get out of it, and short-sighted view of it, because I think they're like you are very much a person that's like, hey, what can I do for you? How can I help you in whatever you're working on? But my view of networking was very much like, I don't want to go into that, because a lot of people that are just positioning themselves to like find out what they can get from someone or from other people. And I just don't want to be, that's not really the way I operate. So I don't want to be in a space that operates that way. So for a long time, I didn't really like put myself out there, collaborate or network, just because it felt to me. I don't know. And working here out of the Canon before building the studio, I tried to push myself out of my comfort zone. So I would work out in the open space, kind of right in the middle, to where I was forced to have conversations. But it was a natural, like organic relationships were built, because it's like, hey, I pass this guy every day. Let me just ask him what he does, or let me, find out how his weekend was. And over time, like, those have developed into client relationships. Those have developed into advisor relationships. Those have mentor. Those have even this space. And so this space is kind of a joint collaboration with the Canon. So this was an idea that I had in mind. And one of my mentors / clients told him about the idea. And he happened to be playing golf with the CEO of the Canon that weekend. And he was like, well, let me mention it to him, see what he thinks. He thought it was a great idea, and it was something that they had been thinking about on the back end. So we had a conversation over months. We kind of developed this, it was not even developed it. It was able to be brought to life by just those kind of natural collaborations.
That's amazing. And I'm like, how can we do that at a second location?
I agree. And that's the other part. When you talk about validating ideas, it's like, as an entrepreneur, I am thinking about like, okay, how does this scale? Where do we go from here? Do we scale into multiple Canon locations? Do we scale into a bigger facility that can house maybe multiple sets centrally located? Do we do something where it's like we have this and then we have maybe we go to different companies? And so it's figuring out how to scale the right way, which I don't have the answer yet. It's one of those, like, I'm still trying to see where the need is and let the data kind of drive the decision. But I agree. It is something that's like, hey, I've got to figure out what that next, at least to start preparing for it, even if it's not for another 6 months or something, a year, like at least start aiming that direction of the next phase. But I don't know what that next phase is yet. I'm still trying to let the market dictate what that looks like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I am curious your thoughts on free work.
there's a time and place for free work. It really is, because I think there is, and I think intuitively where that line is crossed, where it's like, I think there is a benefit where it's mutually beneficial for free work to be done. And there's also that where it's like networking, where it's like someone just wants free work so they can benefit themselves, and they're not looking at the picture of how can this also work? How can I help promote you while also getting, something done on my side? So I think it's a fine line, but I think, I've done this long enough to know, like, I have an intuition about, okay, that could be beneficial for all parties. And that's just you looking at how you can use the space for your own benefits and move on. So, but yeah, free work, I don't think it's terrible. I think you just have to balance it.
Okay. And alongside that, talk to me about forming partnerships, because you've already formed one.
I have. I don't make it a habit of forming partnerships. I've been fortunate to the most recent ones, like I don't know, I guess like early on in my entrepreneurial journey and just seeing other companies, partnerships seemed like they were more challenging than necessary. Like business is already challenging. And so complicating it with partnerships is tough. But I think it goes back to the same question about free work. I think you don't always know, but there's some due diligence you can do. There's some things you can kind of flesh out, questions you can ask to make sure, like, hey, is this a partnership that's mutually beneficial, or is this something that's like you're just trying to use, or even within ourselves, like we have to check ourselves to make sure, like, hey, am I looking at this agreement or this partnership from a selfish standpoint to where I'm just trying to glean as much as I can from the other person? And it's not always the other person that's trying to like negatively affect us or negatively get over on us. So I think it's with everything, it's case by case, but I think partnerships can take you further if it's the right partner.
Yeah.
The right partner.
And if you're thinking about, scaling.
Yep.
The only way to scale is to have a team.
It is. And that's also this may be a thought that's counter to business scaling. But I think there is a point. I think it's very, especially coming out of the pandemic, I think there were a lot of people that were in this hyper growth mode. And I think that's in general in business, but I noticed a lot more post pandemic where people are just looking to scale to the moon and all of this growth. And it's like, well, growth at what cost? So I think there is you have to do some self-reflection and determine, like, okay, what does growth look like in general? But then what does growth look like for me and the company I'm trying to build? And I think there is an argument to be made that small businesses can grow and scale to a certain point, that maybe they leave some on the field, but it's a living that the ownership and the leadership and the company itself is okay with, without growth just for the sake of growth.
How is your family okay with you leaving the corporate suck world?
You know what? I have a great wife, which is so funny because when I did it, we just had my second daughter. So going back a little bit, the last company I worked for was the company my wife still currently works for. And we didn't meet there. We had been together for years at that point. But the last place we worked together, and so we had mortgage, we had all these different things, and we just had, a second daughter. And so conventional wisdom is like, no, you keep the safe job. You don't leave. Like, why would you do this? But, and talking to my wife, and for me, it's like one source of income versus 10 sources of income, flexibility to be there versus having to be at a desk, from 8 to 5, and then having to ask, hey, my daughter's sick. Can I, So it made perfect sense for me. She's been completely on board with trusting me with, she sees the vision. Even sometimes when I don't see the vision, she's able to see the vision. And it's like, no, just keep going. So that, I can't state that enough. Like, having a supportive spouse is like a huge key to, we can be as entrepreneurial in nature. We can be as like, but if you don't have a spouse or somebody that's supportive alongside you, it is either a lonely journey, or you will be fighting every step of the way. The business side is hard enough. You don't want that to carry over into the personal side and, make that even more challenging. So my wife, hands down, has been amazing throughout the process. There's never been a time where, even like in business, there's ebbs and flows, but there's never been a time where it's like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. You need to like go back to the corporate job, or you need to go, like, she's always been like a, partner in it the whole way.
I also, alongside having a supportive wife, I am curious, like, was entrepreneurship encouraged in your family? Did you see entrepreneurship as an option?
I didn't. No, it just kind of, I stumbled upon entrepreneurship. Like there were no examples of that in my family. I do have an uncle that's an entrepreneur, but I didn't see that growing up. And so it was more of like one of those things where it just felt like the path felt right. And I'll kind of contrast that to, it worked out the way it was supposed to. And I liken it to like a lot of things that I didn't see in my life where, so like for not to go down the whole personal journey of it, but even like in my home, like I didn't have the father figure in the house, but I feel like there was once I became a father, it's like you just kind of intuitively, you don't know what to do because nobody knows what to do, but it felt like, if I just keep doing the right things, I will see the fruits of my labor at some point in the future. And so entrepreneurship is the same way. I didn't have any blueprint to it. It's just like, hey, this is what I'm trying to get out of it. This is my aim. Let me just keep walking toward this and navigating as things come up.
A lot of people don't do that, though.
For sure. Yeah.
What got you to do that?
I don't know if it's stubbornness or just like maybe just the way I'm wired in terms of like, there is a solution. Like I think, and this is not the right way to say it, but everything is figure outable. And it's like, I think that in business, I think that in parenting, I think that in relationships, like there is a solution there. You can figure it out. If you just keep moving, you keep working, like you can figure it out. And everything's not going to be the best. It's not going to always turn out the best, but it's figure outable. Whatever that's a word that people can use at home, but it's figure outable. I think so.
Have you worked through the father figure not being in your life thing? And if so, how did you do that?
So like, I feel like I've worked through it just because there's no resentment. Like there was a period of time where there was like resentment, but it wasn't even like from growing up. So typically I think you feel like you missed out on something growing up. And my mother did a great job of like not, and I don't even know if she like intentionally did it, but did a great job of not letting me feel that gap. So it's almost one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. And so growing up and even up through adulthood, I didn't feel like there was anything missing. So there wasn't resentment from that perspective. Once I became a father, there was not resentment, but there was a feeling of like, man, I would have loved to have this dynamic of where I could go to you and say like, hey, how did you handle this from a father's perspective? Or, hey, this is what I'm going through. Can you give me some, so that created, and we'll call it resentment. That created a little bit of like, man, I wish I had that. But there was never a period. It's such a weird thing. There probably are things that I need to work through. I think everybody to a certain degree, but I'm on the other side of that part too. Like I have a relationship with my father now. It's a challenge because it wasn't there growing up. So there's like a little bit of a disconnect in terms of like, we're still learning. We're still figuring out the dynamic of it, but there's no like ill will or anything toward it. It's just, I have come to the realization that I'm not going to be able to get that piece of like advice or guidance from him. And that's okay because there were things in his life that he probably had to work through to where he didn't show up at that point in time. So, I mean, I think I've worked through some of it. Have I worked through it all completely? I don't think so, but at a much better place, I think.
That's pretty amazing. And shout out to your mom for.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. It's funny. Like I've been very fortunate to have strong women in my life, like my mother, my wife, my girls. It's really cool to see like how they stand into certain situations and so it's shout out to my mother, my wife. They're incredible.
That's really cool. Yeah. Talk about being a dad to daughters.
Man, it's so crazy because I think growing up, I think all guys at a certain degree are like, I'd love to have, my son that we throw the ball around or we do this. But for some reason, I knew I was going to have girls. Like, I knew that I was going to have girls. I know if I was to have another child, I almost positive it would be a girl. No doubt in my mind. But I love it. Like, my girls they're funny, they're creative, they're like one of them is super cuddly. One of them is like, we have like it's just such an interesting dynamic. And those same things, like we throw the ball around. So I feel like there's the same thing with like the whole fatherhood piece. I feel like there's nothing that's missing from, you know, just having girls. I feel like I don't know, they're great. They're like, I enjoy hanging out with them, just doing nothing. And I know we're gonna hit the teenage years, and there will be some different dynamics, but they're like really cool kids, and like, yeah, they're really cool kids. So I love the dad. And there's also things that, like, yes, my wife and their relationship that they have with her is amazing. But there's also things that we have our own relationships, or we have, like, my youngest every now and then will just like come in my room and she's like, hey, let's just watch crabbing videos on YouTube, because we've gone crabbing a few times, and like she's whatever is fascinated by crabbing in Galveston. And so we'll sit and watch like 45 minutes of like people crabbing in Galveston. It's just like a thing that we do. Or if she's having trouble at school, she'll talk to me about that. So it's a really cool dynamic.
Do you think that they'll have an interest in your business, and would you want to teach them entrepreneurship?
So the oldest, for sure. She's like, she asks almost daily, like, hey, what can I do in the business? But she's also about like, if anybody else in the family will be an entrepreneur, it will be my oldest, and then maybe my youngest if it's creative enough that she wants to do it. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know if this business will be for them, and I almost don't want to push them in this way. I want to let them decide. I want to encourage them to like go into the things that you like doing, and don't even look at it from making money from it. If that happens, cool, but just like try things, see what you're interested in. Don't let me, your mother, society, school influence you into what you need to be or fit into any box. So I'm here to support whatever that interest is, and we'll figure it out. Like if it's a way to, monetize it that you still enjoy it, let's do that. But I think we're still way too early for that. We're just figuring out kind of what the likes are at this point.
You've heard from my mom. Now, let's switch it over to Grandpa.
All right, I'm flipping the script and getting the cameraman in front of the camera. What'd you think of Kelby?
Well, I thought Kelby was mild-mannered, and he wants to network with people and put on a show. I think that an interesting topic that came out of this is that there are times that you network for free and you try to help each other out if it's mutual. But he's also finding the hard way that there's a lot of people that just use you and abuse you, where it's really about them and not about you. So it's not always easy to distinguish that, but sometimes you have to take a chance and you network together and hope that it's reciprocal, because you never know what one person will recommend or lead to another situation. But I think, both of you can get an idea of networking and knowing whether it's just somebody that's very self-centered for their own benefit or not. It comes out pretty obvious after a while once you get to know somebody. And when that happens, you say, hey, chalk it up to experience, and you move on, and you try to continue to connect with people who are I don't want to say toxic, but that are, have your interests and goals in mind too. Part of this communication of networking is that you want to be able to share ideas, share people where everybody can get a common good out of it, and everybody has a chance to progress and move forward with whatever their ambitions might be, and not to step on other people to get there and use and abuse them and get mad at them if they don't work with you to put you ahead. I think that when it comes to the Better Call Daddy show, we're trying to share experiences, we're trying to share ideals, and see if we can all learn from each other and hopefully all gain a little taste of wisdom and betterment. I think he's trying to do the same thing. I think Kelby's trying to do the same thing. When we're talking about the daddy issue, he wants to be a good daddy to his daughters, and I think that's good for our show. It shows that he wants to have a legacy of working with them and maybe go in. It doesn't have to be the business he's in, but he'd love to see them also try to be entrepreneurs and be able to maybe have their own business someday. And he would like to spirit some of that, is what I'm reading between the lines. And the only sad note is that all of us would love to have a son or love to have a father that also would be a mentor or someone that you can partner with. I was fortunate enough to be able to really partner with my mom and my dad for 45 years, and my mom even a little longer than that, where we've kept the business going in a little different direction, as you know. So I'm very fortunate to have had that experience and try to also pass that down to my children and children's children to see if any of them want to go into business with me. And
That's why you can't get rid of us.
Exactly. Trying to keep it close to the fold. And I think Kelby's trying to do the same thing. He'd really like to see that he can establish something and leave a legacy for his daughters. And I don't know about the idea that he'd like to have more daughters if he was having more children, but there's no harm throwing a son in there once in a while.
Thanks for listening. Now I think I'm going to go call my dad.
I'll say goodbye and see you the next time.
Thanks for listening to the Better Call Daddy Show. Join us weekly for new episodes and more daddy wisdom.
Better Call Daddy is good advice always.
And love you, Grandpa, and love you, Mommy.
That's so cute. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. You can also find special episodes on my YouTube channel, and you can listen on Apple Podcasts,
On Good Pods.
Spotify, Amazon Music, Alexa, or your preferred podcatcher. That's a wrap for now.